from the Command Center. I am your host, Joseph Henry. Thank you for joining us today on the inaugural episode of the Command Center. Hopefully, a long-running, decade-spanning, award-winning podcast about everybody's favorite team, the Washington Commanders. Zero controversy involved with them over the years. But my name is Joseph Henry. This is the first episode of a podcast that I'm starting called The Command Center. I'm actually in a room in my house right now called The Command Center. My parents decorated it, painted it for me over the summer last year with Commanders colors. I'm looking at Terry McLaurin Fathead. I'll have some photos of that up during this segment, maybe on the audio recording. But yeah, so podcast is called The Command Center, live from the Command Center. So it works out well. You know, you see I got the mini helmet back there. There's a lot more merchandise in this room, but I can't really fit that all in. I am wearing a Legend of Taylor Heineke shirt, so you know I'm a real fan supporting a guy that has caused me a lot of pain, but also a lot of joy over the past few seasons. Much love to Taylor. But yeah, my name is Joseph Henry. I am a diehard Washington Commanders fan. And, you know, before we get into today's topics on the podcast, I'm just going to give you a little overview of myself, who I am as a fan, why I started this podcast, and why I hope that you enjoy it. And maybe we can have some fun, maybe interact, because I love the Commanders and I love sports, talking about sports with anybody. So, yeah. So basically, who am I? My name is Joseph Henry. I'm an 18-year-old currently. I go to Rutgers, New Brunswick, and I'm studying journalism and media at Rutgers. I want to be a sports journalist when I'm older, so I decided that, you know, I wanted to start a podcast talking about sports, and I wanted to talk about something I knew a lot about, and I also cared about. So the Commanders, it works out well. And, you know, I live in New Jersey. If anybody knows where Rutgers is, it's in the middle of New Jersey, Central Jersey, if you believe in Central Jersey. Some people only believe there's a North and South Jersey, but I think I believe in Central Jersey. So I live in New Jersey, so you might be thinking, why aren't you a Giants fan? Why aren't you a Jets fan? Why aren't you any type of fan? Well, let me tell you why I became a Commanders fan. My entire life growing up, I was not an athletic kid. I loved superheroes and all that kind of stuff. I only got into sports a few years ago, and it's completely taken over my life how much I love them. But, you know, I became a superhero fan at an early age. So in 2010, I went to go see Iron Man 2 with my dad and my brother. And I saw it, and I loved it, obviously. Iron Man, cool superhero. Love him. Robert Downey Jr., what a hero. Rest in peace, Avengers Endgame. Tony, you know, obviously. No spoilers, but it's been out for like a few years, so you should probably know by now. But I loved Iron Man. And I said to my dad, who's got the colors of Iron Man in the National Football League? And he said, well, pardon my language, the Washington Redskins. And that immediately became my favorite team. Now, it was mostly just I called them my favorite team. In 2014, my dad took me to my first game. We saw the Redskins at the time play the Dallas Cowboys with Tony Romo. That was sort of the end of the RG3 era. The Commanders, well, the Redskins at the time got horribly blown to pieces. But, you know, I've always been a huge fan. And then a few years ago, it was the year that Dwayne Haskins was a rookie. Rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. That year with Case Keenum, when they were up 17-0 against the Eagles week 1. I remember watching that game. I cried. That was when I really started my fandom. And ever since that week 1, I believe that was in the 2019 season, if I'm not mistaken. I've just been 2020 season maybe. Absolutely head over heels for the Commanders. I mean, I got a whole room decorated of them. Half of my wardrobe is dedicated to them, which I'm not sure that a lot of people that care about me like, because I'm always wearing burgundy and gold. But hey, you gotta represent, right? I just love the Commanders, and I care about them so much, and I love talking about sports. I really do. So my goal with this podcast isn't to be a Commanders fan, but from somebody who loves them and has analyzed them so much over the years, to see, you know, talking about specific positions or talking about different segments of the team with my family, I figured why not just put that out there and see if anybody takes interest in it. Hopefully a few fans do, because I know that's the type of fan I am. I love seeing other people's opinions on the team. You know, I know a lot about them, but I'm also I hate them a lot of the time because they hurt me and I cry. And I want to be able to give a unbiased as possible take, but also have all that information and knowledge that I have about the team. So hopefully that I can do that. You know, I love the team, and I feel like over the years I've really started to get a good view of where they are as a franchise and maybe what needs to be the realistic expectation for them moving forward. Is it a Super Bowl year? No, it never is. I don't know why people say they're going to the Super Bowl. But let's talk about that more in the next segment. My name is Joseph Henry. I'm so happy to be starting this podcast live from the Command Center. The podcast name is The Command Center, but we are live from the Command Center. So, whatever. It's all about the Command Center, right? That's the name that I've called this room. And yeah, it's a nice space. But I'm really excited. I can't wait. And I hope that anybody watching enjoys it. So yeah, I'll see you in the next segment. So in this next segment, what we're going to do is basically talk about the state of the team and how I view things, just to give you my general consensus of how I feel about the team in the past few seasons before we dive into each individual position and some of the moves they made in the offseason and analysis for all that different stuff, right? So what we're going into next year is the 4th season under the Ron Rivera era, and it feels like a little bit of a gift for Ron. Listen, I'm a Ron Rivera fan. I think he's a fantastic person, a fantastic motivator. I think he does a good job assembling teams and bringing in different guys. I mean, some of his draft picks have been fantastic. He finds a stud safety in the 7th round of every single draft. Cam Curl, Derek Forrest. He's just so great with that and picking up talent. Guys like Jahan Dotson, guys like Benjamin St-Juste. He really is great with identifying those type of players and bringing together a full roster. So I like Ron a lot. That being said, I don't think he should be the head coach of the Washington Commanders anymore. I think Ron should have been fired at the end of last season, but because they were doing a new ownership change, it wasn't really possible. Dan Snyder was on his way out and the Josh Harris group on his way in. So I felt like it wasn't possible. And it feels like this 4th season is kind of, Ron, you either make the playoffs and win a game or you're going home. But I think the season's also going to be very interesting because the main problem with the Commanders team the past 3 seasons under the Ron Rivera era has been the offense, right? The defense has always stepped up. Say whatever you want about Jack Del Rio and how inconsistent the defense can be at times and how they'll implode and how they have the wrong coverages. The defense is consistently very solid each year, and some games they play fantastic. They'll lock teams down. I don't worry about the defense, right? I worry about the offense and the quarterback situation every single game of every single season. And Scott Turner, who was the OC for the first 3 years that Ron was in D.C., was fired last season. I love the move to get rid of him because I think Scott runs a very one-note offense, and it was awful, truth be told. He was just making atrocious decisions and just completely underestimating the talent. I mean, we had one game, I think it was against the Cleveland Browns this year, the game where we were eliminated from playoff contention, where you're running the ball downfield with Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson, who was an absolute freight train, an Alabama running back, so you know what that means. This guy is just cruising through blocks, just absolutely demolishing linebackers for the other team. So he's running down the field, right? We're getting 4, 5, 7, 8 yards. Beautiful stuff. Love it. Hard-nosed, pound-the-rock football. It's enough to make a grown man cry. That being said, you had a 4th and 1 situation at midfield. So what does Scott Turner dial up? I'm not going to give it to my best player. No, not going to do that. What I am going to do is try to be smarter than the defense. So we're going to do a fullback pitch play to Alex Armah, who is the fullback for the Commanders. I think he signed a futures contract, so he's still going to be around this upcoming season. Obviously, the play got blown up, and the Commanders lost field position, and it was Cleveland Browns football, right? So I think that what Scott always seemed to do was try to outsmart the defense. He'd have these crazy plays where it would be like a 4th down situation, and guess who's getting the ball? It's Dax Milne, our 5th wide receiver. That doesn't work in the National Football League. Your stars are your stars. I mean, a perfect example of this and why so many teams are successful and the Commanders haven't been is, okay, so you look at the Minnesota Vikings, and you have a situation where it's 4th and 19 against the Buffalo Bills, and you need the 1st down to win the game. It's a drive to try to tie the game or win it, right? 4th and 19, you're thinking, oh, they're going to go to Justin Jefferson. All right, in that situation, Scott Turner would throw to maybe the 4th wide receiver, and the game would be lost. What the Vikings dialed up was a deep throw to Justin Jefferson in quadruple coverage. I mean, he had no chance, and he caught it. He caught it. It was one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. He was absolutely crazy for that, and that's why he's one of the best receivers in the game, and that's why he's a star. In the National Football League, you get your stars the football. Scott Turner never did that. Terry McLaurin would always have 1,000 yards because Terry is the best receiver I've seen play for the Commanders in so long. He is disgustingly good. But Scott wouldn't feed him in the crucial situations. The one time that I can remember Scott feeding Terry when we needed it was against the Buccaneers 2 seasons ago. This is when we beat them mid-season. And we were just driving the ball downfield, and we needed a first down bad. It was about a 3rd and 7, I think. Quick slant route to Terry. Terry catches it, gets absolutely popped by a linebacker. But he caught it because he's Terry McLaurin. He's a star. You have to get your star the ball. And that was one of the times where I was like, great call, Scott. I mean, very simple. It's Terry against the other players, and you trust Terry in that situation. Scott didn't do that enough, which brings me to why I'm pretty hopeful for the offense next season is because of one man, Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, the guy that helped develop this amazing Chiefs offense that's won 2 Super Bowls, was hired as the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. I did not believe the move was going to happen because I look at it like this. It's offensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. Why would Eric Bieniemy take a job as the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders when he's already the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs? It doesn't make any sense. But then you think about it, right? Eric Bieniemy, for some reason, is not getting a head coaching job. I don't know why. I mean, he seems like a fantastic interviewer. He's amazing in all of his press conferences. I've watched every single one since he's gone to Washington. It could be a racial thing. Definitely could be. I mean, he seems like such a fantastic person. I can't understand why he wouldn't get a job. But, I think it's also the possibility that he's just an Andy Reid shadow. Everybody's like, well, can this guy make an offensive work without Andy Reid? Because Andy Reid calls the majority of the plays for the Chiefs. So what can Eric Bieniemy do in a play calling situation? Which is why he came to Washington. The offense in Washington has nothing to do with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera's got nothing to say about the offense. I mean, he's a defensive guy. The defense is pretty good. I'll give him that. But when you have a defensive-minded head coach, which is why there's so few defensive-minded head coaches in the league anymore, the offensive coordinator is in charge of the offense. Like, the defensive coordinator has the defensive head coach really doesn't have any input because what's he going to say about it? He'll give tidbits, but the offensive guys just know more. So what having Eric Bieniemy does is it's Eric Bieniemy's offense. He can prove to other teams that he can be that coach. Now, that worries me for a few reasons because I think the offense is going to be very, very good this year. I think so because we've got a lot of talent, which I'll talk about more later. But it also worries me because what does that mean for the future, right? So let's pass around now because I have full thoughts. It's a full circle moment. Ron Rivera is being gifted this 4th season under new management, right? And still rumors came out that they were thinking about potentially trying to move off him. They wanted to talk to Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton came out and said that the Washington new owners wanted to get in contact with him about him going to D.C. But that didn't end up panning out, right? So it seems like Ron Rivera isn't loved by ownership. So there's a tricky situation coming ahead for Ron Rivera. Let's say the team is bad this year. Awful, everything's trash. Ron Rivera gets fired. Let's say the team's very, very good. The defense is still great. Or, no, it takes a step up, it's elite. But it's been pretty good all throughout. But then the offense is elite. And it's playoff worthy, and you win a playoff game. And Sam Howell looks like a real franchise quarterback. Eric Bieniemy's going to leave. Eric Bieniemy's been in head coaching conversations for the past few years. This is his stepping stone point. He's not going to stay in Washington as an offensive coordinator. He wants to be a head coach, and he deserves to be a head coach from what it seems like. And if he can turn this Washington squad, whose offense has been so trash for the past few seasons and abysmal, into a playoff team and a high-powered offense, he deserves to be a head coach without question. So what does that mean for Ron Rivera then? Because if you're the new Josh Harris guy and Washington didn't love Ron Rivera already and they were like, this guy could have been gone, but it's a weird transition period, you're going to fire Ron and want to make Eric Bieniemy the head coach. Or else Eric Bieniemy is going to leave, and then it's going to be the exact same thing. So then Ron Rivera is going into his 5th season. He lost his offensive coordinator. You're not finding another Eric Bieniemy. So the way I see it, Ron Rivera is losing his job after this season no matter what. I mean, unless the offense is just kind of so-so, and then Eric Bieniemy says, I just don't see how it works out. I think either way, Ron's gone, and the real hope is, can we re-sign Eric Bieniemy to either be our head coach Or is he going to go to another team to be a head coach after this season? Because he's not going to be here for too long. I mean, you see the explosive offenses he creates. So my ideal situation is that after the season, let's say the offense is good, they go to the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game, right? They hire Eric Bieniemy to become the full-time head coach. Jack Del Rio stays on as the DC, the defensive coordinator. Ron Rivera moves to the GM office with Marty Herney and Martin Mayhew. I would love to see that because I think Ron's a fantastic evaluator of talent, and I love the way that the guys root for him. I remember when we beat Philadelphia this season and the way that the team rallied around him and Ron Rivera's mom, who had tragically passed away a few days prior. I cried. I'm an emotional person, but I think anybody would cry in that situation. Also, shout out the Eagles fan on Twitter who was hating on Ron, and then I responded back to him, and then he told me, he took a photo of my bio face, and he said, "You're really ugly." And then I got him with a death blow, guys. I said, "Your mom didn't think that was ugly last night." I know, it was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad blow for that guy. I shouldn't have engaged in that conflict. I'm a professional. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. But, I think it was just a really beautiful moment. So I think the guys love Ron, and I'm worried about how this season's going to pan out, because Ron, it looks like he's going to be gone either way. Because the new ownership, and then you have Eric Bieniemy. So is Eric Bieniemy going to take his job? Is Eric Bieniemy going to go somewhere else? Are they just going to start all over? We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. But, let's talk a little bit why I don't love Ron as a head coach, okay? So we'll give it to you plain and simple. Inconsistency. And the same inconsistency every single year, all right? So in his 3 years as head coach, the Commanders have gone 22, 27, and 1. So, you look at that, not a great winning percentage. They've had one playoff appearance in the first year, and they lost 0-1. So 22, 28, and 1 as a total in his 3 years. Not good. It's not good at all. And then we look at each season. 7-9 year 1, 7-10 year 2, and then 8-1 year 3. 3 years of mediocrity, hovering around 500. Year 2, steep drop off to 7-10, but right around that 7-win range every single year. And it's the same things that happen each year to get them to the 7-win area, right? So let's look at year 1. They start off 1-5, go on a crazy win streak, and beat the undefeated Steelers up until that point. 6-7. Awesome stuff. They lose their next 2 games when they could have easily punched their ticket to the playoffs. And in a Week 17 game, Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, where the game was really weird and Jalen Hurts got pulled down. It felt like the Commanders didn't even deserve to be there. But Giants should have won more than 5 games then. Sue me. All right? I don't know what to say about that. The Commanders deserved to make the playoffs that year, or the football team at the time deserved to make the playoffs. But it was an odd end to a season when they started off so hot, 6-7, and then you lose to the Panthers and Seattle, and then you get the Week 17 win against the Eagles, but still, not really what you're looking for. Next year, expected to take a huge jump. 2-6, you start off. Awful. You go on a huge win streak. 6-6, including beating the Buccaneers, the defending Super Bowl champions, who beat you in the playoffs the year before, and the team that had Tom Brady and was a fantastic playoff team. They went to the NFC Championship that year. They dropped 4 in a row, 6-10, and they win their Week 17 game. You see a pattern here? Bad start, hot streak, worse ending, and then you win your last game. Now in year 1, it turned out to be a playoff puncher, but in year 2, it was too far gone at that point. Year 3, let's take a look. You start off 1-4. Hot streak. 7-5. Guess who they beat? Philadelphia Eagles, who were also undefeated up until that point. Then, 7-5. You play the Giants back-to-back games, who were struggling. You lose both those games. Well, you tie one and then you lose. They fall to 7-8-1 and get eliminated from playoff contention. That really hurt. Then they win their last game, 8-1. You see the pattern here? Ron Rivera has had a lot of hot and cold stuff, but each season is essentially scripted the same way. They start off awful, 1-5, 2-6, 1-4. They go on a hot streak. They beat one of the best teams in the league. It was the Steelers year 1, who were undefeated. Then it was the Bucs. Then it was the Eagles, a team that nobody expected them to beat, right? Then they lose more with all this momentum, 6-9, 6-10, 7-8-1. And then they win their last game, 7-9, 7-10, 8-1. It's the same thing year after year. Inconsistency. Consistent inconsistency. And don't even get me started on the quarterback situation. Let's take a look, right? In Ron Rivera's 3 full seasons as head coach, he's had 8 quarterback starts for the Commanders. Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, Alex Smith, Taylor Heinicke, Garrett Gilbert, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Carson Wentz, Sam Howell. So many guys and not a franchise quarterback in sight. I'll tell you what, I love the way that Ron assembles these rosters and the way that he gets this talent together. I mean, you look at the position groups, and we're going to do that later on in the next few episodes, is just analyzing each position group. The amount of talent at each position from when he started to now is completely different. The Commanders are a borderline playoff team now before they were a borderline number 1 overall pick team. So Ron Rivera has done a fantastic job of that. The only position I'd still say is really weak on the team is off-ball linebacker, because Ron Rivera refuses to add a third one. Oh, sorry. He refuses to add a third one. They lose Cole Holcomb. He adds Cody Barton. He's like, I think we're good. Buddy, you need a third one. You need a third linebacker. It's okay. It's okay. Anyway, the one position they can't get right is quarterback. And you look at these 3 seasons, 8 different guys starting for the team, and a lot of weird choices about who to play who when. I look at this most recent season. It was against the Cleveland Browns. You need a big win. And yeah, the Commanders had slumped for the past few games, but they decided to put Carson Wentz in. Listen, I got the move at the time because Carson Wentz is a huge, high upside player. And he was hurt for most of the season this year, so they didn't even know what they got. They were like, is this a guy or not? Like, are we re-signing him or not? Like, what are we doing? So they put him in the Cleveland Browns game, and he was so bad. 3 picks. I think he completed like 5 or 6 passes. I watched the film on it, and I had to turn it off. I was getting sick. He was so utterly awful. And as a fan, I was like, I want to see Wentz. But that's not what it's supposed to be, right? The head coach should know Taylor Heinicke's got the guys behind him, because Taylor's always had the guys behind him. Legend of Taylor Heinicke right there. It was a fan-type move to bench Heinicke for Wentz. You guys know what I'm talking about. The Commanders fan know what I'm talking about. That was a move that I would have made in Madden simulation, right? That's not a move that Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Commanders, makes. He should have known better. He sees these guys in practice every day. If I saw Wentz in practice throwing like balls left and right and high and down, you should know better. You should know better. It's just been a whole lot of mediocrity and inconsistency, and it's just hard to look at, right? So state of the team. How am I feeling about the team? We're going to year 4 of the Ron Rivera era. I am thinking that this team's got all the pieces in place. All the pieces in place. I think they have so much talent. I think they finally have an offensive coordinator that can really utilize this talent. Really interested to see how Logan Thomas pops in this Eric Bieniemy offense, by the way. But I look at this team, right? And the way that it's set up. And it's all about quarterback. It really is. It's always been about quarterback. You look at these games, right? 7-9, 7-10, 8-1, 8-1. A good quarterback, or just a solid quarterback, which the Commanders have not had in Ron Rivera's time here since Kirk Cousins. Excuse me, let me get some water. I'm really going on a rant here. Alrighty. You look at what solid quarterback play can do for you. I mean, as much as it pains me to say, look at the Giants this year. Daniel Jones takes a step up, and he really becomes a solid quarterback. He doesn't turn it over. He's not throwing up crazy numbers, touchdowns, whatever. But I think he had 4 or 5 picks to end the year. That's solid quarterback play. The Commanders, and we'll dive more into this into the quarterback discussion because I don't really want to go too much into it now because we're really just talking about the team as a whole. They have not gotten consistent production to lead them to the playoffs. And, you know, when Alex Smith was the quarterback, he did that for them, right? He did that for them, but he was so much older that what that consistency showed is how important it was to get a quarterback. And Ron just has missed on every attempt. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Carson Wentz. I mean, what are we doing here? So I think what this team needs is a consistent quarterback. And I'm a big Sam Howell fan. I loved him in college. And I'm really excited to see what he can do with this Eric Bieniemy offense because you look at the state of the team. every position is stacked. I mean, the weakest positions are tight end, middle linebacker, and offensive line. But wide receiver, running back, D line, secondary, they're loaded top to bottom. I mean, you've got guys that are stars, you've got guys that have the potential to be stars, and you've got guys that are just high-end utility pieces. So the team's stacked. It just comes down to the offense and the quarterback situation. So I'm just very excited to see this season. I think the schedule is tough, but you're never given an easy schedule in the NFL. I mean, you look at some of the worst teams in the league last season. Who had the number 1 overall pick this year? Oh, the Panthers traded the Bears for it, but the Bears are probably going to be good. I mean, they've got all these talented pieces around Justin Fields now. I mean, it should be a pretty good team. At least 5 to 6 wins, something like that. I'm flexible, just stretching out the knees. I've been sitting here working on this for a little bit. The team is set up, and I've been saying this since year 2, because when we went 7-9 and made the playoffs, I was thinking we've got a lot of talent. I mean, you look at the defensive line, you look at the receivers, you look at the corner. We have the talent. It's just about putting it together and getting a consistent offense. So my thoughts on the state of the team are basically, this team can easily go to the playoffs and win a game or two, maybe go on a little bit of a hot streak. It comes down to the offense and the quarterback play. And what we get from Eric Bieniemy this season and Sam Howell, that duo, is going to decide this team. Because we know what the team is without them, right? They're a 7-9, 8-8 team. And it's been that way for the past 3 seasons. And you put in different quarterbacks for that, different offensive coordinators. We need that next step. And if Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy can provide that, the state of this team is, we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to win some games. It's a tough division, but when you got a defense that can beat people up, you got a running game that's strong, a lot of talented weapons, you can win some games in this league. So, pretty excited for the state of the team. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good season. I think it's either going to be a good season and Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy are going to flourish, or we're just going to rip it to pieces and we're going to get Caleb Williams. So it's a win-win, honestly. So, feeling pretty good about that. But that's my thoughts on the state of the team. I think that's going to wrap it up for the first episode of the Command Center, because we had the intro, then this, and this is running about 20 or so minutes. So I think in the next episode, we're going to dive into those positional breakdowns. We're going to take a look at quarterback and one other one, not sure yet, maybe corner. We'll take a look, maybe D-line. D-line's the easy one. Everybody knows how well stacked the defensive line is. But I just want to thank you guys for listening. This has been a lot of fun. I didn't even realize how long I was talking for, but really enjoyed it. I hope you guys did too. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm always happy to talk, happy to have guests on, whatever works. So yeah, it was just a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, because it was a lot of fun. But yeah, just talk to you soon, and I'll see you for the next episode of the Command Center. My name's Joseph Henry, and thank you for joining me. See you next time.